Powerplex for me is one of the most human and complex villains in the world of comics. He's not one of those classic villains who just want to take over the world or blow everything up just because. The motivation behind this character is one of the most plausible I've ever seen in the universe of comic book villains. While other guys are busy trying to enslave humanity or come up with megalomaniacal plans to destroy the planet, Powerplex has a much more human goal. He just wants justice. Simple as that. Or maybe not so simple, because when you stop to think about the circumstances he's in, well, chances are any of us would make similar choices. Or even worse ones. We don't know much about Scott's origin, but it's implied that he was born in the United States and had a relatively normal life. He was married to a woman named Becky, with whom he had a son. He also had a sister who worked in one of the buildings destroyed during the epic battle between Omni-Man and Mark at the start of the series. That battle, which marked the beginning of Invincible's legacy, was a catastrophic event that left thousands dead and injured. Among them was Scott's sister. This loss, combined with the helplessness he felt in the face of the destruction caused by superhumans, was the trigger for his transformation into Powerplex. For Scott, Mark Grayson and his alien father weren't heroes. They were responsible for his sister's death and the deaths of so many other innocent people. He didn't want to take over the world, enslave humans, or come up with some crazy plan. He just wanted justice. Justice that, from his point of view, could only be achieved by confronting and punishing Mark for what he had done. Scott began carefully planning his revenge. He stole biothermal discs, devices used to store energy, and adapted them to amplify his own powers. He deliberately provoked crimes to get Mark's attention. On one occasion, Shapesmith showed up instead of Invincible. Scott easily defeated Shapesmith and pretended to be Mark to draw Becky into the confrontation. She was furious when she found out Scott was getting involved in dangerous fights and tried to talk him out of it. But Scott was determined. He kept stealing biothermal discs to further increase his energy storage capacity. In another attempt to lure Invincible, Scott used his own wife and son as hostages. He knew Mark would come to save them, giving him the chance to face him directly. When Invincible arrived, Scott finally revealed his true motivation. His sister had been in the building that Mark and Omni-Man destroyed during that first brutal battle. Mark tried to apologize, but Scott wouldn't accept it. For him, words weren't enough. The fight between Scott and Mark was intense. Powerplex used his powers to absorb the kinetic energy from Invincible's punches and send it back in devastating waves. He managed to land several hits on Mark, proving himself to be a formidable opponent. However, at a critical moment, he channeled all his energy into one colossal attack. The problem was that this power explosion spiraled out of control. The consequences were devastating. The explosion incinerated Becky and Scott's son right in front of his eyes. Horrified, Scott fell to his knees, crying while Invincible tried to comfort him. But Scott refused comfort. He blamed Mark for what had happened, arguing that it was Invincible's interference that led to the deaths of his family. Mark, realizing how Scott's powers worked, hugged him to drain all his energy. Without his powers, Scott was captured and sent to Stronghold Penitentiary. Before being taken away, he swore he'd find a way to kill Mark in the future. After the events of the Invincible War, when the evil versions of Mark caused widespread destruction, Scott managed to escape from the rubble. He began helping to clear the debris from the devastated areas, but his hatred for Mark still burned inside him. When he saw Invincible teleport to him, Scott immediately attacked. Youngblood intervened and Shaft shot an energized arrow at Scott, giving him even more energy. Powerplex retaliated but was distracted by Mark, who took the opportunity to strike again. Badrock arrived and held Scott down, forcing him to use up all his stored energy. With his powers drained, Scott was taken back to the Pentagon, where he was placed under custody. Surprisingly, Scott was given a second chance. Cecil Stedman, the government agent overseeing superhumans, offered him the opportunity to redeem himself. He joined the Actioneers, a team of superhumans led by Kinetic, and started working to help humanity. However, the peace didn't last long. When Las Vegas was destroyed during the battle between Dinosaurus and Mark, Scott lost his patience. He confronted Invincible, saying he would never forgive him for what he had done. Mark, on the other hand, reminded Scott that it was he himself who had put his wife and son in harm's way by using them as hostages. It was a devastating revelation for Scott, who emotionally collapsed. He was arrested again, this time without hope of redemption. What strikes me most about Powerplex's arc is just how small it is compared to the other massive stories in Invincible. There's no alien invasion, no intergalactic war, no planets exploding, or universes at risk. It's a simple, intimate story, almost domestic if you think about it. And that's exactly why it works so well. Powerplex isn't trying to take over the world or create a new global order. He's just trying to deal with the pain he feels every day. He lost someone he loved, his sister, in a brutal way, and for him, Invincible is to blame. His anger makes sense. His pain makes sense. He's not being irrational, he's being human. And then comes that devastating part of the story, when he decides to use his own family as hostages to force Mark to show up. You think, man, this isn't going to end well. And it really doesn't. The explosion that kills Becky and his son is one of the saddest moments in the series because you realize it was him who put them there. He wanted to punish Mark, but he ended up punishing himself, and in a much worse way. This arc is proof that you don't need mega cosmic conflicts to tell a powerful story. Everything here revolves around basic human emotions: anger, pain, guilt, revenge, redemption. These are universal themes that everyone has felt in some way. I'm glad you stuck around till the end, and I ask you to keep liking, commenting, and letting me know if you want more stories or more content about the Invincible series. We'll bring it here.